I got you.
Yeah, I don't know how I I'm never late for a thing like this, so I feel pretty terrible about that. But I'm glad that we're in this now.
It's all good. You made it home safe. That traffic must have been for real.
Man, I did some very questionable driving that I won't admit on air, but yeah, I got here.
No one's roping you out here. But yeah, so since we did lose some time, we definitely want to hop right into it, get into your story.
Sure.
I know I've seen some of your other kind of interviews, and I always hear about the frying chicken.
Yeah.
So let's start there. So you start out like frying chicken. I'm guessing.
So I worked in gas stations for a good portion of my life, and I genuinely believe that's exactly where I was going to stay. And I was at 30 years old, frying chicken in a gas station, and I said, I'm at a fork in the road. If I go right, I'm going to be here for the rest of my life, and I will die in this gas station. If I go left, I got to make a change, whatever it is, but it's got to be now. Like, I'm at 30, like, I got to make these moves now before it's too late. And it was at this time that I saw an interview on TV. And this rapper is being interviewed, and he invested several $1 millions into a tech company. So he was asked, why invest in a tech company? And he said, he's learning how to code. Now, this blew my mind because I didn't know that this was possible. My whole life, I believed that tech was for the PhDs and the rocket scientists of the world. These are geniuses. No one from my background that grew up in my neighborhood and hung out with the people that I hung out with could ever end up in tech. And obviously he was asked like, well, why are you learning how to code? He's not going to become a software developer. He's making millions of dollars as a rapper, right? Like he has the least amount of interest in trying to get into tech for that. And he said, his reasoning was profound. He said, why wouldn't you want to know how the thing that you touch 90% of your day operates? Like we have a basic understanding of our body, right? If I'm sick, I know either A, I need to go see a doctor, I'm not going to make it, or B, I can take some Robitussin and I'll be okay. I can ride this out. Or if my car makes a weird sound, I'm like, oh, that's not normal. I need to go to a mechanic about this. So why is the limit of our understanding on these amazing machines to open up, Internet Explorer, Google Chrome, and go to youtube.com? Like, why is that the limit? Like, why don't I understand how this machine operates? Like, why can't I make my own software? Like, why don't I understand why this laptop costs $2,200 or why my smartphone costs $1,500? Like, why is the limit there? And it's there because I placed it there. Like, I've done no research. I've learned nothing about this. And the whole future's going this way. So I might as well start learning how to code. So he starts learning how to code, and so do I. And I get on freecodecamp.org and I start learning. And I hear about this thing called meetups. And at this time in my life, I go to this meetup and I find one online and I go there. And I know HTML and CSS. I made a very simple application where you put the URL of an image and it returns it with some coloring on top. It's like a really bad filter. Basically, at this point in my life, I could cure cancer with code, right? Like I could solve all the world problems. But I walk in this meetup and I very quickly realized, oh, I don't know stuff. I don't know anything, right? And they're saying all these foreign languages to me. Like they're talking about Java and C# and Python, and none of this means anything to me. But now I'm hooked. I'm in this. You've just introduced me to this breadth of knowledge that I didn't even know existed, right? I didn't know this world existed. And I quickly realized in this meetup that I'm being excluded from the conversation instead of being included in this conversation. And it's because I didn't know anything. And I said in that moment, I will never be excluded again. So I go home and I start studying. I'm learning about JavaScript and I'm learning ES6. And I go to that next meeting like, well, do you know how to do this with an arrow function? Do you know about a ternary operator? And then I go home and I start studying more and more and more. I start learning about SQL. And I go to that next meeting and I say, well, do you know what a SQL table is? Do you know how to do a SQL query? And I start learning more and more and more. And I start learning about Java. And I go to that next meeting and say, well, do you know what Spring Framework? And do you know how to do this? And now I'm included in this phenomenal community of amazing developers who's all there just to talk about tech and help other people grow. And that meetup, that journey really changed my coordination of where I was heading in life. And it was because of meetups that I became so influenced and hooked on everything tech. Because when I was learning how to code, it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to get a job in tech. I still didn't know that. I was like, I'm going to make a website. I don't know what it's going to be about, but it's going to be about something and it's going to be great. And like, you know, you just have these ideas like, I'm going to make this killer website that millions of people are going to check out. And then you realize, oh, nobody checks out these websites unless you do like a bunch of SEO and all this other stuff.
Classic developers.
Yeah. But like, it got me so hooked on the process. And to be honest, I started leading meetups after that, and I never intended to ever lead a community of developers or to try and guide a group of developers. And the only reason why that ever happened, you know, I went to that meetup and I asked the same question everybody asks before they get a job in tech, and it's, how do I get the first job in tech? And I heard the exact same answer over and over like a broken record, and it was, oh man, that first job, whoo, that's tough.
I'm sure a lot of people are experiencing that right now.
Oh, yeah, 100%. That first job is tough, but if you get it, every single job after that will come easier. Mm-hmm. To me, this was the worst thing you could have ever told me, because not only did you demotivate and demoralize me, you've given me nothing to work on. You've given me nothing to say, do X, Y, Z, and you will end up in this spot. You've just basically told me the last 6 months have been a waste. And I realized at that same moment that everyone else that was a beginner in tech was getting the exact same answer to that exact same question. And so I said, okay, I need to fix this. And I realized that the meetup doesn't have to be the goal, but it can be the tool to the goal. And so I created a LinkedIn profile, and I'm frying chicken in the gas station, right? I smell like chicken when I go to these meetups. When I go to a meetup, you know, for a long time, they call me Popeyes because it's literally what they were craving when I walked in. And so I walk in these meetups, and I have no purpose being on a website like LinkedIn. But I said, you know what? I still started cold calling and cold messaging hiring managers and recruiters and decision makers for businesses. And in the beginning, they're like, who is this guy? Who is this guy? And now they're like, oh, I knew Danny from the beginning. But I knew that like a lot of people are kind of nervous to throw themselves out there into these situations. And I said, I'll be the extrovert for the introvert. I'll look like the dummy to make somebody else look like the genius. And so I started going to these meetups, and I realized like, if I can showcase these people inside of an opportunity, like that they're coming here on their own like volition, like they want to be here, they're learning something, they're growing, and they're growing with their community. If I can showcase that in the right light, it will make a hiring manager more interested in this individual to talk to them again. And then I started giving people networking tips. Next thing I know, I helped the first person get their first job in tech. And that moment.
When was that?
Say it again?
When was that? That first job? The
first job, front-end developer. So
okay.
I helped him get this job. And what I realized in that moment was like, he was so happy, he had tears in his eyes, right? And I realized in that moment that nothing in the world mattered to him more than him making his dream come true. And nothing mattered more to me in that moment than celebrating his success with him. And I went from one person to 10 people to 20 people. And now I've helped almost 70 people land their first jobs in tech. And I work as a developer too. So it's like, I don't monetize it. I don't take money for that. It's just, I just enjoy and love doing it. But I think I've also realized like I can help people go down the right path. So that way they're basically getting the best out of it. And I think this is a really long answer to, hey, how you doing, by the way? But, you know, we're just going.
Well, it's better than the classic good in you, you know? But yeah, so to unpack, like to go to the beginning. So you know, like you're frying chicken in this gas station, and then you said you just kind of started learning, and you went to that meetup. So like, where did you find this meetup? And also, like, what meetup was it?
So it was a meetup group that I ended up working with called Code Connector. And it's just, you know, a meetup in Memphis. I'm in Memphis, Tennessee. And basically, like, the meetups were small, and it was just the same kind of people over and over again. And when I started leading with them, I said, you know, I see a hole here that we can really use to our advantage. And so we went from like, you know, 5 people, 10 people, 15 people at a meetup to triple digits, to we're getting over 100 people, 150 people. And I saw that the biggest thing for me was if I compare a senior developer with a junior developer or an aspiring developer, number one, that senior is now getting that sense of mentorship. Like they're like, oh, like I feel like kind of like full, you know, like I'm helping them. I feel great about it. And the junior's like, man, I'm getting insight that I would never get from anywhere else. And so by doing that, it helped the community grow. And I would literally pair people like, oh, you're learning SQL? Well, he's a SQL developer. Let me pair you guys. And I ended up like creating these connections for people, and it just grew. And from there, I had some differences, and I said, you know what? I was approached by several companies at that time, and I said, I'm going to do my own thing. I don't want to really answer to somebody in this thing, because I have a very, 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 very clear and concise vision of what I know I can do. And I don't want this getting muddled up, and I don't want people losing opportunities. So I was about to start my own meetup, and at that time, I started GDG Memphis, where Google Developers Group Memphis were a group backed by Google developers. And it was a natural partnership because my biggest goal was to bring tangible and useful resources to our community. And in doing so, it worked. And I mean, we've brought a ton of resources since then, and we've helped a lot of people get jobs. And we've held like mock interview events where we've had hiring managers from all over the city come out and talk to developers. And like, we just had a meetup literally on Thursday where we had the entire Google Android team come out and answer questions, talk about Android 11 and like all that. I don't know anything about Android. So it was a very good learning experience for me. But, you know, it's exposing people to technologies that they weren't exposed to and seeing what they click with and if that's a possible field for them to go down.
So with the Google Developers Group, because I don't think I know of any like Google office in Memphis. So like, how did they find you, or did you find them? Like, how'd that happen?
So I'm a very big believer in if I walk in a room, I need to make an impact. And so with LinkedIn, I started making that impact. And I have no problem making a fool of myself and messaging somebody because the worst they can say is no, and I'll never see them for the rest of my life. Like, we're never going to be in a room together. So I don't mind messaging somebody and saying, hey, like, I think this is a great idea. And either they're going to be like, oh, yeah, let's have a conversation. Or they're like, no, that's terrible. And I'm like, well, we're never going to meet each other. So it's great that we said this over LinkedIn.
Exactly. People don't get that enough. It's like the worst you can get is a no. And like 99.99% of people you'll never see in your life. But if you get that one yes, like it could change your life.
I'll tell you like what I've realized, especially when I message people, I'll get 100 no's before I get a yes. But that yes is more valuable than those 100 no's, especially if it's like a yes for a job. And let's say that job is paying you 100 grand. You're telling me each one of those no's aren't worth $1,000?
Each one probably took you 5 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, like, and here's the other thing, like when you're messaging these people, like it's not a big deal to send messages. And the way I tell people, I have a whole series on LinkedIn and like how to get jobs using LinkedIn and how to get your profile to stand out. And literally in 1 week, I'm getting screenshots from people saying my like views on my profile by employers has increased by 500%. And that literally tells me you're letting opportunity to walk past your door. Like you're not even putting out your arm to stop it. Like you're just comfortable letting it walk past. And it's only because you're not fixing your profile up and sending out a couple messages. I got a message from somebody who literally got a job within 2 weeks of fixing his profile as a front-end developer. Like, are you telling me that if I'm telling you that there's an opportunity right here and all you have to do is message it, you're not going to message it? But now let's just say I hide that opportunity behind 500 people. Are you not curious enough to find out which one is behind?
It's a good way to put it. So then, like, I know you want people to go watch LinkedIn series, but what's like one big thing from like that series to give everyone a sneak peek that kind of make the difference for these people that got jobs?
So the most common thing that I see with people, they put their whole life story in a job description. The average hiring manager spends 6 to 10 seconds looking at a profile before deciding I should invest more time in this or go on to the next person. Think about it. They need to go through 1,000 people, right? They're going through 1,000 people. Do you really want to make your information so hard to be tangible and for them to grab it that they're like, you know what? I just need to go on to the next one. Like people want to put their whole life story and it's like, no, you need talking points. The interview is where you talk about what you did. Yeah. This is your literal business card to say, we need to have a conversation. So you fix those points and it's like bing, bing, bing. Like within 5 seconds, they're like, oh, this has piqued my interest. Let me send this person a message. And then they send the message and now you can have that conversation. The other thing is most people when they put down like under their tagline of the job that they have instead of the job that they want. So, for example, if you're a waiter right now, you may put you're a waiter under the top. But if someone's looking for a front end developer, waiter's not popping up in that search.
Mm-hmm.
So little things like that. Now, obviously, like, the whole series is on YouTube, go nuts. And I mean, I think we probably critique like 40, 50 profiles. So if you can't figure out within that, like what you need to do, and it's 4 different hiring managers literally describing, this is what I search for. This is exactly what pops up when I search. Like that level of insight, you're not going to get from anywhere. I don't care. And it's all for free, by the way. Like I don't charge for this. So, I never want to charge to try and help people land jobs in tech. So like, there's no better way to stand out besides that.
No, it's amazing, man. Like, and I think also like it just ties into like kind of what you were saying. Like, what's the story you're telling about yourself? Like, why should a company be hiring you? And also like with stories, like I get you have tables of contents for every book. So that's kind of like you have to give them like, oh, these are the points that are interesting about me. Versus, hey, like people just kind of do a brain dump and oftentimes throwing like generic words also like. I can't even think of it, but like, you kind of know the descriptions I'm talking about.
100%. The way I look at this is like this: like you're basically putting yourself on a menu, right? Because everyone else is advertising themselves. So when you go to a restaurant and you see a good item, you're like, oh, that sounds like that would be a good dinner. Well, instead, you're trying to feed this person yourself for a year because that's what you want to be employed for, right? At least a year. So how are you advertising yourself in a way that's attractive to them to be like, let me take a chance on this individual? And that's the problem with a lot of people too. And I talk about this all the time. People walk into these conversations and these interviews with what I call like a begging mindset. Just give me a chance. I just need a chance. Just give me a chance. Instead, like think about that. Whenever someone comes begging for money from you, like, hey, you have $1 to spare, you almost get like, and it's not like by choice. It's like an inner, like visceral reaction where you're like, oh, don't do this. Don't do this. Same thing happens in these scenarios. But if you go in with a value mindset, I'm valuable. I will bring value to this conversation and I will bring value to this team. And if you bring value, they will bring a checkbook. It's as simple as that. There's no company in the history of the world where like, hey, I'm totally ready to turn down the opportunity to make money. I'm totally ready to turn down the opportunity to optimize my team. And I think a lot of people just go into these interviews saying, just please give me a chance. And they don't realize like it's not being perceived the way you think it is.
Yeah. And it's like, I get it, because like some people, it's also you get through like the financial struggles when you're kind of unemployed for months and months and trying. You get to that point where you're like, hey, like just throw me a bone, and like I don't care what kind of bone it is, like I'm down. But yeah, it's like if someone feels like they chose you versus you're just like choosing them out of anything, then it's a different mindset. Like they value more. So like you just have to show that value, like you said.
100%.
And so then, like when you were starting out and you got your first job, like, did you kind of know this off the bat and like employ this, or was this something, you had to learn through trials and tribulations?
So it's definitely a learning curve,
Yeah.
But I will say I turned down 6 jobs in tech before landing my first job. And it sounds like, he knew what he was doing, but I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I figured it out. But to be honest, I was so hooked on helping others get jobs that I would literally go to interviews and be like, hey, if you like me, you're going to love so-and-so. Let me get you connected. And because I wasn't interested. So, and the other thing is I'm a very stubborn human being. And when I create a vision of what I want, and everything was not matching the way I deemed it, like the way I dreamed this was going to happen. It wasn't there for me. And I kept turning it down until I ended up finding my dream job. Matter of fact, one interview, I stopped it halfway through. I realized, this isn't for me. And halfway through the interview, I was like, I'm a big believer in valuing your time. So I value my time. And I told him, I said, I value my time and I value yours, and this isn't going to be a good fit. And I was like, but I have this great community that I would love for you to talk to. We got so many phenomenal developers. And he was the CTO of the company, and he just stared at the screen, and he ended the call. And he called me back the next day, and he said, in 20 years, that has never happened. Never happened. But if you're crazy enough to ask me to come out, then you have to be doing something incredible there. So I'm going to come out and talk to you guys. And so he came out and talked, and it was a great meetup, and he had a phenomenal time. We all had a phenomenal time. But you never know where one conversation can take you. And like right now, I'm doing a deal right now with a city government an hour away from me, and it's only because I had one conversation with one stranger in December, and they approached me in July. Like, I never talked to them again since that time period. But that one conversation was so strong, and it led such a long life that 6 months later that they remembered you. And it all comes to, like, if you walk into a room and you make an impact, people are going to remember you.
Mm-hmm. You gotta plant those seeds. Like your seed grew after 6 months, and
100%. And like this, keep one thing in mind when I'm talking about this. Like, these hands battered chicken, and now they're dancing on a keyboard. But it only changed because of basically like putting yourself out there a little bit, but also, and I'm a big believer in network. Like, your network is very valuable, but if you go to a meetup, you're going to meet developers, and like they're talking about things you're already interested in. Like, you want to make websites. Well, they make websites. Or you want to build software. Well, they make software. Or you want to get a job in tech. Well, guess what? They got a job in tech. You don't know where the introduction can take you.
That's the thing. Like, and it's kind of harder now, like there's not those meetups in person. Right. But there's so many communities now, like not like there's LinkedIn, and like I know a lot of people have found good people on LinkedIn, but there's also like those hidden communities. Are there any like that you know of for developers?
I have my Discord group. We have like 1,600 developers in there, and there's a bunch of groups like that online. But networking is easier now than ever before because everyone is equally as lonely.
I agree. Yeah, we had like a networking event last night for Prentice, and I was telling them I was like, this is much easier for me to network versus before. They're like, all right, you're good at this. I'm like, no. I'm like, I had meetups before. I've walked into meetups and been like, all right, I'm too scared to talk to people and left. Yeah. But online, it's just like, you're online, you hop on video. If it doesn't work out, you can always exit, but usually it does work out.
100%, and I'll say this, that people are more open. Like, you've got Twitter, you've got LinkedIn, you've got Instagram, and there's developers everywhere. There's hiring managers everywhere. But make sure you're conducting yourself in a way that you want to showcase online. Like, I can't tell you how many people that I see on a daily basis. It's like, oh, I want to get a job in tech. And then they're, sharing stuff that, and if an employer looked at it, like, there's no way in hell I'd hire this person. So just be mindful of that. But there's an entire community that would love to have you be a part of it, and they're just waiting for you to send the first message.
Yeah, the first message, or then also like you talking about the brand, like if you continue to post, like the person that needs to find you might not be online every day. So that's why you got to be consistent, and then maybe they do see that one time, and that's what clicks. That's what gets you that opportunity.
100%.
Yeah.
Jacob Stranger, he just said, Danny, keep on learning open source. Well, I'm learning open source because I never intended it, but we in our Discord community, we started an open source channel, and it's kind of grown into this whole thing. I'm like, well, I guess this is something I really need to dive deeper into besides just knowing, how to make a pull request. But he might be from the community, I don't know. But there's so many areas of tech, and what I constantly learn, and I talk about this as well, being a developer is like being on a lifelong journey of learning. It never stops. There's always something new to learn. Every year they're releasing a new version of your favorite framework or library, and you're always going to be learning something. The earlier you get content with that, the longer your journey will sustain. Because I see all these people that are like, I just need to learn React, and my whole life is set up. And it's like, there's a lot after that, and there's no straight line in tech, unfortunately. I talk about this all the time. I started with HTML, CSS, JavaScript. I started learning Python, and I loved Python. And then I realized there are 0 Python jobs in my city, even though it's like the #1 hiring language. So then I had to drop Python. I started learning Java, and then I started learning Spring. And I, went to SQL, and like that path, even though it's kind of zigzagged and kind of went in a circle, I mean, it was there and it was very valuable for me. So find out what's in demand in your area and take advantage of that. Because and that's another thing too with boot camps. Boot camps give you this predefined path, but a lot of them haven't even researched if in this particular area, like this is what's in value. Like there's a boot camp in my town that teaches Node.js. There's no Node.js jobs here, but there's a ton of C# jobs. So it's like when you graduate from the boot camp, now you got to learn a brand new language that you could have had exposure to in the boot camp if they did some research.
Yeah, well, one thing with boot camps, because so like I don't know if you know, but I'm actually also like a mentor at Thinkful. So I teach
Okay,
data
cool.
science there, and like one of the things I tell them is sometimes like, oh, I saw like this technology, like how come like Thinkful doesn't teach this? I'm like, the point of boot camps isn't to teach you everything in the world. Like you need years to do that. But the biggest thing is I want my students to learn how to learn, because you're gonna be learning your whole life. And like you get the base in boot camp, like here's one language and kind of a tool you can use to build, but you're going to need a lot more different tools in your tool set to build the house you need to build in your area, like you said.
You're saying it's going to take years for you to teach me everything in the world? Whoa, 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 whoa. Where's my
Yeah.
money? Give it back. I can't believe this. You're telling me I can't be a developer in 4 weeks? What? Are you saying all these posts online are lying to me? 90-day developer is not possible?
Yes. Some people, yeah, like that's what they think. They think, they're going to go in for a few weeks, come out and like know everything in the world and get a job like presented to them. But yeah, it's not like that in real life.
You know what kills me is I saw like an ad on a website and I tweeted about this where they're like, you make websites in 4 weeks. I was like, make websites in 4 weeks? I didn't know the difference between margin and padding in 4 weeks, much less making a whole website. Like, I don't know where this comes from. But a lot of people genuinely believe like, oh, I'll study for 3 months and there's a 6-figure job waiting for me at the end of that door. And I always say, every single day someone's learning HTML. There's the first experience with it. In 3 months, let's say today you started and 1,000 people started. In 3 months, 1,000 people are looking for the same jobs you're looking for. Mm-hmm. What do you do when 1,000 people want the exact same thing that you want? What do you do when 1,000 people have the exact same vision, the exact same dream that you have? You've got to do a little bit extra than the ordinary. And when you do that, that's how you get extraordinary. Doing that little bit extra, that sets you apart. And that's what gets you hireable. Because a lot of people, like if you learn HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and you're like, oh, I'm great. Well, you may find a job in that. I'm not saying it's impossible. I will say it's definitely going to be hard and you can put some work into it, but you would be more appealing if you know a framework. Boom, now you know React. Well, now you've got the basics of a front-end developer. But what are you doing to showcase that you're actually valuable as a hire? You want them to give you money, but what are you bringing to the table besides the bare minimum? Well, now you showcase these projects that you built, showing that, hey, I know exactly what I'm talking about, and I've got the proof is in the pudding. Come check this out. I've got this great portfolio site that showcases all my work. Now you're standing out. I've got 4 steps to become a developer. LinkedIn's number 1. You have to have a strong LinkedIn. 90 million users on LinkedIn are hiring managers, recruiters, and decision makers for businesses. You need to stand out where they hang out. It only makes sense. Step 2, you need a portfolio site. It doesn't need to be super technical, but it does need to be appealing to the eye. And let me tell you why.
Yes.
Your portfolio site is your business card in tech. But most hiring managers that will look at this know nothing about coding. They've never coded a day in their life. But if it looks decent to them, it doesn't have to be like all the bells and whistles and tells you your horoscope and predicts your like social security number. No, it just needs to look decent. And if it does, what happens is they trust that site to a degree. So when they trust it, that's a site that they can recommend. Step 3 is your portfolio items. These are your projects. This is where you're showcasing your coding technical abilities. Like this is where you say, this is how I prove to you that I know and I own this language. This is what the managers are going to look at after the hiring manager passes it to them. The 4th step is your resume. And I'm big on, I hate filling out applications. I don't fill out job applications. I leverage my network to get jobs. I reach out to them. And here's another thing. On LinkedIn, when they post a job, 9 times out of 10, you can see who posted it. So what do you do now? You message that person saying, hey, I saw that you posted this job, and here are 3 reasons why I think you and I need to have a conversation. Bam, 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 bam. And now when they contact you back, they're like, you know what? Yeah, this sounds really interesting. Let's schedule an interview with you. Just that fast. You didn't fill out an application. You went straight into interview number 1. And now when you go into that interview is when you're passing over that resume.
Yeah. And yeah, with that step, like I've told people, like when I've posted jobs for hiring on my company, it's like I always say, okay, like I'll wait at least a week until reviewing profiles. But then sometimes people just slide in my DMs, and all of a sudden I'm like, how did we get an interview scheduled? It just kind of happens. You got to scheme the system, basically.
Like I'll tell you, like, and this is just being real. When you apply to a job, it is going through several phases before it ever reaches a human being.
Yep.
And when I realized that, I was having a conversation with somebody at a networking event when I realized that. They were talking about how the ATS software kicks people out. And I said, so you're telling me if I lie to the ATS, I'll end up in someone's hands. And so on Indeed, they'll ask you these pre-qualifying questions like, do you have 5 years experience? Do you have a bachelor's degree? I just said, yes. And they'll contact me saying, oh, I'm looking at your application, but do you have a bachelor's? No, I don't. I've never been to college. Then, well, you hit yes. I was like, yeah, because I wanted to talk to you. Let's talk about what you're doing. They hated that, but I realized that's how I get to a person. But if I just say, forget this ATS, forget this application, I'm going to talk to somebody there. Now I'm in a privileged position where I'm beating out everyone that's applying. Like 1,000 people applied. One person sent a message. Who do you think got in the interview first?
Mm-hmm. You got to go above and beyond.
It's crude to say that, but I'll tell you, sending a message is so much more faster than filling out an application. And I'm not saying, don't fill out applications. I'll fill out a couple here and there, but I've definitely gotten way more opportunities out of a message than anything else. And I mean, recruiters and managers are people, like they're going to respond to that message one way or another. As long as, and I mean this, when you message or do anything, be purposeful. Don't say, hey, how are you? No one's replying.
I hate that.
I get them 50 times a day. I don't even look at them anymore. On an average day, I get between 500 and 700 messages. If you do not come to me with purpose, we will never communicate. And it's the same thing with anybody else. If I message you directly with, hey, I think we need to have a conversation because X, Y, and Z, you're more inept to be like, okay, let's have that conversation. Like, if you think that this is valuable, there may be something here. Like, I'm always open to having a good conversation. I didn't know Rod before this. He messaged me with purpose. I was like, what? Let's have that conversation. And here we are.
Yeah, it's how it is. It's like, and what I always say is like, whenever you write something, like send it to yourself first. And if you wouldn't open it, and if you wouldn't like be spurred to action, then change it up. Like work on your writing skills and do something that will actually get the response you want.
100%.
Yeah. And so then, so moving further in your career. So now, like you've been talking about developers, how to get jobs for a while. So I know you're not obviously like outgoing person, but like when did it start that you were posting every day on LinkedIn and Twitter? Was that like from like your first job or even before that?
Oh, that was gas station. I basically said, I'm going to ruffle as many feathers as I can, but it wasn't for me. Like it was more for, if I showcased all these developers, I can put them in the eyes of people around town. And I can't tell you how many times I would take pictures of these developers at meetups and post them online, and people are like, man, I saw you at this thing. And like, I can't tell you how many people literally were walking to interviews like, oh, I've seen you before on that Danny guy's profile. And it just started building into this thing. But like, and I mean this, I'm no marketer. Like I just said, I'm just going to throw this out there and see what happens. But I also know consistent action breeds consistent action. If you are consistent, results will follow no matter what it is. Same thing with Twitter. With Twitter, I literally started posting. In March, I had like 300 followers. And I was like, you know what? COVID's going down and all that. Let's see what happens. And right now I'm sitting at 40. Yeah.
300.
I'm new to Twitter. Yeah.
Wow.
I gained 30,000 followers in 3 months just by posting. And I mean, it really comes down to that, like being very consistent. And like, And that's another thing. People are so inconsistent with their message. Like, if you know your niche, if you know exactly what you're about, and you keep posting about these things, you're going to attract those people. Each post is a billboard, right? So if I go from posting about tech to posting about basketball to posting about football, like my niche is gone. Nobody knows what the hell I'm about besides I'm just a dude that likes sports and tech. Like, it's not enough to really grab somebody. But if you become an authority on whatever you're discussing, people will seek you out. People will talk about you. And it and this is kind of like way off what I normally talk about, but like building your following literally comes from I'm going to be consistent. I'm going to keep producing the same content, and I'm going to be producing something that people in this sector really like. And you don't need to become popular on social media to get a job in tech. Not at all.
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell you, I talk to developers that are phenomenal beyond belief that have like 500 followers. Like, your follower count does not equate to your level or your ability in tech. It just means that you're good at posting crap. But what comes with that is opportunities. Like, I can tell you, I've gotten a ton of opportunities just off of social media by having a big following. Like, I was just, I wasn't going to talk about this, but I just turned down a job at Microsoft, and it literally came from, being popular online and getting that opportunity. Being popular online will bring you opportunities. There's just no way around it, because you don't know where those people work, where they're following you from, and what they're doing. But none of that really matters with the grand scheme of things. What matters more is whatever you're posting, especially on LinkedIn. Twitter is great for opportunities. LinkedIn is great for jobs and money. That's where they live. Like 41% of the world's millionaires use LinkedIn on a daily basis. So there's money to be had on that website. And that's exactly where the jobs are. I talk about Twitter a lot because I like Twitter. I have meaningful conversations that come from really good ideas on Twitter, but LinkedIn is absolutely where opportunities and jobs live. And it's almost foolish to not put yourself in the best light possible on the website. That is a place where you need to toot your own horn, and it is completely okay.
Yeah,
that is a place where I can. Yeah. I was gonna say that's the place where I can literally message a stranger that's a developer and be like, "Hey, I heard you work at a XYZ company." If I were to send that same message on Facebook, they're gonna be like, "What are you, freak? Like, what did you stalk me? How did you find out this information?" But you do that on LinkedIn, they're like, "Oh yeah, I was Employee of the Month and I got this award, and these people love me, and they're like, this is the exact tech stack we use at work." And that is how I ended up finding out the tech stacks of the companies that I wanted to work for. And that is why I ended up learning Java and Angular, because the companies that I wanted to work for use that. And what's funny is I don't necessarily advise you learning what only a few companies use, because C# is high in demand in my town. But there's like 10 companies that use Java and Angular, and I wanted to work for only those 10 companies. And so that's really kind of putting all my eggs in one basket. And I'm glad it worked out, because like right now it's kind of like a rags to riches story, but if it didn't, this would be a rags to rags story. So, learn what's in demand. Don't pigeonhole yourself, because if it didn't work out, I'd be learning C# and wasting 6 months trying to figure that out, to make myself marketable. But if you find out what's valuable in that area, you will.
Yeah, and it's funny, like what you're talking about with it could have been like a rags to rags story, because with all these kind of stories, and when you get a job, like you have a certain percentage. So let's say you have a 20% chance of getting a job coming out of boot camp, but it's your job to do the extra stuff that we've been talking about to increase your opportunity, increase the statistics or the odds that you will be chosen for a job. And yes, there's people that I know some people look at people in the boot camp program and they see, oh, they got a job before even graduate, and like why is it taking me 4 or 5 months? And sometimes it is luck, but other times it's just you gotta ask yourself, have you done everything you can yet?
Professor Pratt, I saw that you wrote a question that I really want to answer, but before I get to that, I will say this: you're completely right, and some of it is luck, 100%. And I will say that there's definitely bias in this industry to a degree, and like that also plays in fact, and it's terrible. I will say though, it is a numbers game. And if you're only putting yourself in front of 10 people, it's not enough. Like I talk to people all the time. They're like, "Man, I'm applying to jobs all the time." Well, how many jobs did you apply to? Oh, I applied to a lot. Okay, well, how much is a lot? Oh, a lot. Like, how much is a lot? 500, 1,000, 100. Oh, like 50. That's not a lot. And I hate saying that. Like, if you've only sent out 50 messages, you're probably not doing justice to yourself. And the other thing is, and it sucks that you need to build up all these other things, but like if I were to come to you and I'm selling you something, right? And I say, hey, I want you to buy this handkerchief. And you're like, well, I don't need a handkerchief. You know, I've got a million handkerchiefs. Everyone offers me a handkerchief. It's like, yeah, well, this handkerchief also comes with a carrying case. Well, I don't need that carrying case. Well, it also comes with a carrying pouch and it also comes with a suit. Now you're like, well, oh, you just added all these extra things. Now this is appealing. So if you come to me and you're like, oh, yeah, I know how to do the basics in React. So, okay, well, I mean, what else are you bringing to the table? Because John down the street knows the basics of React, and Sarah down the street knows React, and Vladimir down the street knows React and Vue. And so, like, what are you bringing? Well, now I know React, and now I've built this application that showcases, X, Y, Z. And now I also know SQL, so I can utilize that React and tie that to SQL. So now I have a database. Well, you want to really step this up? Oh, I know Java, and now, we're full stack at this point, and now you're opening more and more doors. So the more you know, the more you're worth, in a sense. Knowledge is valuable, but if you're bringing the bare minimum to the table. And here's another thing. If you're undervaluing yourself in these interviews, like if you're underselling yourself, like, oh, I just know the basics, or just please give me a chance. Don't be shocked if they undervalue you too. If you say you're worth the bare minimum, don't be shocked if that's what you get, And it goes back to that whole purpose of being valuable. But I do want to answer this question by Professor Pratt. And
yeah, go ahead. I think my chat stream is frozen, so let me.
Yeah, I have the YouTube video open up side by side so I can see it. But he wrote, I've read job postings that basically say they want 5 years of experience and lots of experience with languages, only to be a junior. In all seriousness, how pro do you need to be for your first job? Do you want to answer this? You can go ahead and answer this first before I answer this. I've got a huge answer on this one.
So in terms of experience, like I think the biggest thing is you have to realize, like, certain companies, they need someone that's going to be able to start right away in that experience, because they don't know how to do what they want to do. So you don't want to be in there as your first job anyways. But then for the other companies that they're bigger and they want 5 years, it's just because they're scared. The code is kind of like a personal thing. It's like you're going inside of a company and you're going to affect how they actually function. But if you kind of alleviate their fear and say, hey, like, I know this and I will learn anything that's needed and express that, hey, I'll bring this value, then you could convince them. But some other people, you just can't convince.
So for me, I don't give a fuck about what the years are, okay? I don't care. If you know 50% of what they're asking for, apply. If you know the languages that they're looking for, apply. Best case scenario, they offer you a job. Worst case scenario, they say no. Or at the very least, you can have a conversation to show why you're going to bring value to this team. Simple as that. I can tell you right now, for the 6 job offers I had, they all wanted experience. They all wanted somebody with a degree. I don't have a degree. My job that I have right now, I'm the very first person they ever hired without a degree. And I took that upon myself to make sure I do a good job. Like, I'm taking screenshots of, like, whenever they're like, hey, Danny, good job. I'm like, screenshot, I'm saving this for records. I need you to know that I'm bringing it to the table. But I need to make sure that I'm not messing this up for anybody behind me. If you take that opportunity to really push yourself out, I guarantee you'll get more yeses than you think. And here's the worst thing. If you apply and they don't respond, it's no different than applying to a job that you actually qualify for and don't respond. Like, might as well. Like, it can't really hurt, can it?
Mm-hmm. And you don't know their situation. Like, maybe they're at that point where they're lowering their years and they realize, hey, it doesn't matter as much. So you could then get in from there.
And I can tell you from firsthand experience where I've applied to jobs and, like, you applied for, a higher position, and obviously you don't qualify for that, but we actually have this position here that we would love to talk to you about. You don't know all the positions that company's hiring for. Like they don't post them like on one job ad, like we're hiring for XYZ. You know, they're just saying for this one particular position. You may have missed the ads for the other ones that may have not posted it yet. You never know. And that also goes back into like networking. If you're networking with these hiring managers and these developers, you'll see on their own LinkedIn when they post for jobs. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you really can't go wrong with it. So, main answer, apply. If you think it's a lost cause, apply. If you think it's not a lost cause, apply. You don't know what can come out in that situation.
Yeah.
We've got a question here. Should I contribute to GitHub open source projects? I know how to use version control, but contributing is a completely new domain. And William Johnson, I see you. He's someone that I want to, you know what's funny about him? We don't know each other, but we've networked with each other. So we're in the circles and we're going to be talking and we're going to do some things together. But I mean, that's another thing. Like, phenomenal developer. He does stuff with Egghead, and you'd never know what one opportunity can land you, one conversation. But contributing to open source is cool. It definitely, like, a lot of managers love seeing that. And obviously, if you contribute to open source and it's been accepted, you know something. Like, it's a great way to be like, hey, his knowledge is valuable to a degree. I would say it will never make or break whatever you're doing, but it can't hurt. That's my opinion. It really can't hurt.
It goes back to increasing your odds.
100%. And if anyone has questions, please put it in the chat. We'll answer them. But
yeah, exactly. We'll answer them. I wish I could see it. First using Restream, and it was working in the beginning. I had them, kind of testing it out with me, but
right.
last thing I saw was volunteer Shannon's tribute.
All right, but and here's another thing, and I'll say this: I'm a big believer in not capping your success. A lot of people cap their success, and it almost kills them. I'm a big believer in if you believe that you're going to make $1 million, you'll 100% make $1 million, but you won't make $1.5 million. You won't make $2 million. Same thing with this. So many people are like, man, I just want to be a junior developer. I just want to be a junior developer. And then they finally they get that opportunity. They become a junior developer. They get that taste of exactly what they wanted, and then they quit. That passion dies. That hunger dies. They're no longer working hard, trying to learn new things. They're like, oh, I got exactly what I wanted, and I'm here where I want to be. And then 6 months later, they lose their jobs. They're like, what the hell happened? I got my job in tech. Everything was supposed to be gravy. It was supposed to be sunshine and rainbows and fairies dancing in the sky. And now they're like, well, I lost it all. I never had the goal of trying to become a junior developer, entry developer. My goal was always to be the most valuable developer that I could be. Entry and junior were natural stepping stones. Of course it was going to come. You can't be a valuable developer without getting entry first. It's going to come. So if your goal and your cap is so low that you don't know how to exceed it, then what are you going to do when you finally get there? For me, I'm a big believer in my goals need to be so big. They're so big that I get excited by it. A lot of people know, if you follow me, I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Now, I'm not telling you to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. The time of the day doesn't really matter. But what matters is you actually dedicating time to yourself within that time. I wake up at 4 o'clock, and I don't wake up saying, oh, man, it's 4 a.m. I wake up, I'm excited because I'm getting to work on the goals that I have for myself. Like, people, they don't have these goals, and like, I'm a big believer in you'll find satisfaction in your goals because you're working towards something that you actually believe in, you love, and you're passionate about. But if you don't have these goals, what are you doing? You kind of just going in circles, and that's when you kind of get in what I call like the treadmill of life, and you're just going through the motions. You just get through the day, and you kind of get stuck and bored. And a lot of people end up getting like depression to a degree because you're not doing anything. You're like, man, what am I doing in my life? Then that midlife crisis hits at 40, and next thing you're like, oh my God, the whole world's crashing down. It's going past. You need to love your life so much. Like, you need to be so in love with yourself, like your life depends on it. Like, literally, if you love your life that much, you're going to figure out ways to utilize it in a way that's actually fruitful. Like, I see people so much, and like, it kind of drives me crazy to a degree where they're like, what are you doing? And like, I have no idea. And it's like, cool if you don't have no idea, you're taking it day by day by day, but how many days go by before you get an idea? Like, what happens when everything goes wrong? Because it's gonna happen. It's not if, it's when. Life is a roller coaster and there's no way to avoid it. So when everything goes to hell, will you get your idea then? When it's too late? Like what happens, I guarantee you right now, if I were to tell you, like let's say I'm a doctor and I'm like, you have, a year to live. You're gonna have a very clear purpose, and it's almost as if like, okay, I've got a year, I want to make something happen, I want to secure my family or whatever it may be. But now all of a sudden, you've got these goals that came to fruition almost overnight of what you want. Well, the last 20 years, you could have had the same thing. You could have had a lot of stuff going right for you as opposed at the end of it.
Mm-hmm. So like in that case, it's like, set like a date and say, hey, I have to do like this. You light a fire under your ass, so that way like you're actually pushing towards it, and hey, I got to do this today. I got to do this the next day, this week, this month, and then you will get to where you want to go. But without without kind of making it clear what you're going to achieve and when, then it's like, it'll happen eventually one day, but it doesn't.
100%. And here's the thing, I love being a developer. Like I love this. I'm genuinely in love with my career. I'm definitely making more money than the gas station. Like that's for sure. Obviously life has changed. But like for me, my goals are so big right now. For example, one goal that I had, I wanted to do the biggest tech conference Memphis has ever had. We've never really had a tech conference, and I went up to 20 different people that like were organizers, and I was like, I really want to do this conference. So they're all like, no, don't do it. It's not going to work. It's going to fail. It's not going to happen. No one's going to come. It's a terrible idea. I was gutted. Like it hurt me to my soul, right? 2 weeks later, almost 3 weeks later, one person finally comes back to me, and they're like, if you really want to do this, I'll go ahead and I'll donate my time. I'll help you out. And I just looked at him. I said, oh, did you guys think this wasn't going to happen because you said no? Like, no. Like, I've already got the speakers lined up. I've got the software ready. I've really already got RSVPs going on. Like, all this is done. I just wanted you to be a part of it. But with less than 4 weeks of planning, I had 3,000 people attend the conference, and it went fantastic. So, it all comes down to like what you want to do and what you want to bring to the table. But that's my goals. Like I'm a big goal-oriented individual. Between my laptop here and my TV right there, I write down my goals on a piece of paper and I put it on my wall. Some goals have been up there for months. Like they're not small goals. I think it's good to have little small things that you can knock out, but it has to lead to something big that you're like excited, like, ooh, I get to work on this. Ooh, I'm going to make this happen. And so one of my goals, I wanted to hit 50 people getting the first jobs in tech, and I hit that. Now it's 100 that I want to hit that. I was on track until COVID hit, totally killed my momentum. But like that's one of my goals. I had a goal on my wall from October of 2019. I want to be on the Code Newbie podcast. I made that goal happen 3 weeks ago. I recorded my episode. It took me almost 10 months to make that really come to life. I had a goal where I wanted to get $1,000 in learning resources to Black Girls Code, right? I'm not like a rich dude, right? $1,000 is a lot of money to just give away that you're not going to get any value from. But I made that goal happen last month, and that was on my wall since September of 2019. Like these goals are up there. I'm working on so many things right now. I've got them all on my wall, like all these big goals, and it's not really necessarily about me. I no longer care. Something clicked in me. Like I no longer care about being a rich man on my deathbed. Like it doesn't excite me. I don't care about that. I care about making an impact in my community and helping the people around me. Because if I help someone get to where they're going, can you imagine all the people they're going to pull along the way with them? By helping one person, we may be helping 5 people.
Yeah.
So I've given out almost $35,000 worth of learning resources, whether it's courses, books, whatever like someone needs that helps them get to that next level. I've been trying to help them with. So I do like a bunch of giveaways on Twitter, and I do a lot of giveaways in my town. But the biggest thing is I just gave away 6 full ride scholarships to a boot camp. And my theory was people get scholarships to like colleges and stuff like, oh, I got a scholarship. They don't really think about it. They're like, oh, I just got this thing, right? But what if someone physically is giving you the money to go to this school to change your life, will you honor it and hold it much more sincerely than some random organization giving you a path? And so far, it's working out that way. And my goal was to literally change the lives of 6 human beings, and it's working. And like for Memphis, for example, we have some of the lowest cost of living in the country, but we also have some of the lowest cost of earning in the country. We have an area in particular where the average household annual income is $18,000 a year. If I can take one of these people, give them learning resources, give them the mentorship, give them all this stuff, and get them into a job to where they're now making 80 grand a year, they're now generating 4.5 times the average household income. If I can get 20 people from that same area into similar jobs, I just changed the neighborhood. Now the schools are benefiting because we just changed the tax bracket. So now the kids are benefiting from that. Not only that, but we're helping deter gang violence and drug violence because now these people got money. But we're also removing the number one reason for divorce in these communities, and that's financial issues. So just by providing learning resources to the people that need it most, we're changing everything. But not only are we providing learning resources, we're providing financial literacy, because it doesn't matter if you make more money. If you don't know what to do with it, you're going to end up in the same situation. Everyone's like, I just need to make more money. That's not the solution. I've seen it fail time and time again. It's until you learn what the money does, how to invest it, how to produce long-term wealth, will that money actually change for you. Because I can give you 200 grand a year, you still be broke.
Yeah, I know people like that. But then I was like, look at my parents. My parents were probably making like 50K combined growing up, and I'm like, how did you do that? But like other people, like my sister, like her husband right now, they make like 200K almost, and they don't know how to manage it. I'm like, it's just knowing how to take that money and then not only make yourself more successful, but the people around you, like that's magical.
Well, you know what comes with that kind of, and is just being honest, some of it is almost like privilege. In upper class communities, a lot of these financial literacy tips are spoke about within the family. They know this, and they're sharing this information with the kids at a younger age. Well, what happens when you grow up into a household where, and similar to mine, where my mother is like, 401k, that's stocks. You're gambling with your life.
I've heard that one. I've heard that one from my parents.
So it's, how do you take away that like idea, like, oh, this is something bad, and now saying, well, do you know that if you were to put $1,000 under your bed today, it would not be worth the same $1,000 in a year from now, because inflation grows by 2%. So in 10 years, you lost 20% of the value and the buying power of that $1,000. No, that doesn't make sense. It's under my bed. $1,000 is $1,000. There's a gap in the understanding, but it only comes through education. Education is a window. You know, people ask me all the time, oh, what should I start learning? And when you don't know what you don't know, it's disingenuous of me to say, well, do you like back end? Do you like front end? You don't know what the hell back end is. You don't know what front end is. And people are always like, well, do you like problem solving? Like, I guess. Well, you never problem solved yet, so you don't know if you like it, or do you like the design? You don't know this yet. So I always say my go-to answer, start a free code camp hour. Just start there. When you get to JavaScript, that is your first taste of real programming, right? At this point, you're saying, oh, do I like the problem-solving aspect? Now, if I were to tell you, well, you can look at Python, you've opened this window that didn't exist for you before, and now you actually understand what you're looking at. Or do you like mobile development? Because now you know JavaScript. You may like React Native. Or do you like Ruby, for example? Or do you like, you'll have a better idea of what you want to do with yourself. But when people ask people, like, what do you want to do? You don't know. And so same thing happens with financial literacy. You don't know what you don't know. And the problem is you don't know the questions to ask because you don't know it. So until we educate you on some level to some degree, you'll never get the answers you're searching for. Because even if I were to tell you right now, go Google financial literacy, you don't know what to Google. You don't know what to Google. So that's where that education comes with answering questions. Now I know we've got quite a few messages that just came in this chat. I'll answer. So we have Anurag, and he says, I've built a website as a portfolio, but when I apply, they ask for a PDF. It's just weird to showcase projects and links to projects in a PDF. Also, what's the use of putting stats like 80% HTML? Do you want to answer first? You want me to answer first? How do you want to do it?
You can go first.
Sure. I think the dumbest thing you can do is put 80%, 70%, 60% for a language skill. And let me tell you why. Let's say you know 50% of JavaScript and that's what you put on the thing. What if you know 100% of what the job requires? You've just discounted yourself immediately. And now I'm like, well, you only know 50% of language. So-and-so says he knows 80. And where are you even getting these numbers from? It's from what you feel, right? But you don't even know. You don't have a metric you're going off of. I know 80% of HTML. Well, do you know a section tag? Do you know all these things? Like, do you know a main attribute? Do you know this? How do you know 80% of the language? Because you don't know what you don't know yet. I think you're shooting yourself in the foot because if I were to ask you what you think you know and you say 50%, I was like, well, he knows he doesn't know a lot of stuff. I might as well just discount him right away. Or even 80%, I'm going to say, well, how does he know he knows 80%? And then when I pull you in for an interview, now I'm way more critical on you to prove that 80%. And now if I ask you a JavaScript question, and let's say I'm looking for a ternary operator, and you give me like a basic if-else statement. I'm like, well, you could have did this a higher level. You said you know 80%. You should know this already. Mm-hmm. You've just killed yourself again. Don't put those limitations there because they don't exist until you make them. Instead, just say, I know JavaScript. And in the interview, that's when you can say, well, I have a basic level, I have an intermediate level. Let them decide what you know, and let them decide to say, oh, well, he knows enough for this job. We should totally hire him. Simple as that. And as far as the portfolio site, your resume, your LinkedIn, all that should have your portfolio site there, and they can look at it. I don't think you need to have your portfolio site as a PDF. I don't know how. I've never heard of that before. But I think maybe you're talking about your resume as a PDF.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Pretty standard. I have all my resumes in PDF. And most hiring managers want to view it that way.
Yeah, and I think with the PDF also, you can have links in there these days. So it's not as, restrictive in terms of that.
100%.
And then one other thing that Danny was talking about in terms of, setting like your 80%, your 50%, I think women actually have to look at this more because they say like in studies that women like always are kind of underestimating like their skills, and then men are like putting it higher. So
I believe that.
And that's one case where women should watch out and say and not underestimate their skills, because all these kind of numbers are arbitrary. I think even anything less than 100% is honestly going to look a little bit weird.
100%. And just since we basically went over this topic, if you are a woman and you are studying tech, I need you to go ahead and do a damn good job because we need more women in tech. There's studies that show that boards of companies that have women on them outperform boards of companies that do not have women on them. And I will tell you that there is a gap that you can fill. And I have met some of the best developers in my life that are women. So I need you to come with it. We need more women in tech. And I know that we have a couple women in this chat right now. And I believe in you. And I know you will bring value to whatever team you're going to. So we need to go ahead and make that happen. We have Aya Galloway that said, this is incredible advice. Thank you. We've got Leela that said, this is very motivating. Thank you. That means I did my job. I appreciate that. How did you deal with the loss of motivation when you were learning? So this is a really good question. I love this. And there's a quote that I love, and I'm glad I just remembered this. It's by Muhammad Ali, and it goes, pretend to be the champion even if you're not. Because if you develop that mindset, that you're going to keep going for it. I can tell you there have been countless times, even recently, because of, imposter syndrome really is a thing, where I've doubted myself, where I'm like, you know what, I'm not cut out for this. This is terrible. Imposter syndrome is only as strong as you allow it to be, number one. I've literally gotten to the point now where, before code review, my imposter syndrome is kicking, I'm going to be found out as a fraud. You can control imposter syndrome better when you actually know what it derives from. Imposter syndrome is the fear of being called out as a fraud, being exposed, or feeling as if you're not good enough. But it's also the fear of how you're going to have to react to that situation. Now that we know where it's coming from, what it's stemming from, like for me, for example, mine really comes from code reviews where they're going to be like, oh man, you're a terrible developer. If I know it's coming from there, I can control it. Now, me and imposter syndrome are basically friends. I know it's there. It knows I'm here. We don't get in each other's way. We know each other exist, but we both know that we're going to thrive together and grow. And it's totally changed the dynamic of that. If you're in a situation where you don't have the motivation to learn, a lot of times it comes also from the goal. Like, think about it. Really think about this for a second. And I've got a good example to go with this. Just becoming a software developer is not really exciting, right? Like, oh, it's a job. You'll get a job anywhere. You can get a paycheck from anywhere. Like, you can get a paycheck frying chicken. I got paychecks. Or you can get a paycheck driving Uber. Like, you can make a good paycheck. And whatever you put into this, what you're going to get, right?
Yeah.
Being a software developer is not exciting. But what is it giving you? Is it giving you financial freedom? That's pretty damn exciting. Is it giving you the ability to buy a house for your family? That's pretty damn exciting. Is it giving you the ability to provide for your mother, your father, your wife, your son, or your daughter? That's pretty exciting. Is it giving you the ability to not work 80 hours a week no more, but work 40-hour weeks? That's pretty damn exciting. So get excited about what you're learning, and you'll never want to stop. But if you keep going and you're like, oh, I'm just going to be a developer. Everyone's a damn developer. There's aspiring developers everywhere. There's great developers. There's terrible developers. It's not exciting. Make your goal so big that it's exciting. You want to go buy $1 million house? Well, how are we going to do that? Like, I'm not saying you're going to be a millionaire working in development, but you can get a loan from a bank probably if you got a good job. So, I mean, it's like stepping stones at that point, right? You know, for me, my goal was always to be the best, most valuable developer I could be, right? And honestly, I just had a one-on-one interview, right? It took me almost no time to get my first promotion in tech, and it took me a little while after that to get my second promotion in tech. And again, my goal is to be the most valuable developer I could be. I had a great one-on-one meeting, and I was talking to my wife about it. She's like, oh, how'd the one-on-one go? I was like, oh, it went all right. She's like, well, aren't you happy about it? I was like, no, I feel terrible. She's like, terrible? Why? I was like, because this should have already happened. I have these goals, and I got these stepping stones. This was supposed to already happen. So why is it taking a little bit longer to reach there? I've got somewhere that I need to be, because once I get to that, I'm walking through these doors, but I'm putting a doorstop and I'm holding them open so other people can come behind. So if I'm not making the progress I want to make, I can't get more people in behind me. This is bigger than me. It's not just tech. I've got bigger aspirations and goals here. Make your goals so big that you get excited about it. Like, look at these people that dream about, like, oh, I'm going to be an NBA player. That's a friggin' huge goal. Mm-hmm. And let's say they just make it to college ball. You made it somewhere exciting nonetheless. But your goal wasn't, I just want to win this game in the park. The goal was, I need to keep training to keep increasing and making my craft better. That needs to be the same goal here. If you're learning something, be purposeful. So are you learning how algorithms work? Well, why are you learning how this algorithm works? Like, there's got to be a stepping stone of purpose behind it. Don't just go into this blindly throwing yourself into a hole and not having a way to dig yourself out of it. Make that goal exciting, and you will never lose your focus and motivation to it.
Yeah, make those goals big, but also make the goals that get you to that big goal not as big, but like make them achievable. But just know the steps you have to achieve to get to that big goal. Because like you're going to help out a lot of people, but like like you said, you set a goal for in October 2019 to hold this conference, and like you just did it, and then you were on that show. It's all a process, and you just have to know how to get there.
100%. Like I'll tell you like this, you know, I don't really consider myself a writer. I'm more of a speaker. I can talk a lot of crap, right? Like I got a mouth. If you don't ring it back, like it'll just keep going. Like if we don't stop this interview, like we can go till midnight. Like I'm not stopping until you're like, hey man, I got a job. I got to wake up 2 a.m. Like this isn't happening. But for me, like I'm just excited by these goals because I've made them so ridiculously big. Like when I tell these goals to people, sometimes they're like, oh, that's nuts. Like you're crazy. I remember when I was in the gas station, and I had these goals that I laid out about, I was literally leading a community of developers while working in a gas station frying chicken. And at that time when I had that goal, everybody's like, you're friggin' nuts. Like, why would they listen to you? And next thing you know, I'm leading 150 people in a meetup. Like I'm leading a panel of 5 top tier developers with 20 years experience each. And they're answering my questions because I had this crazy goal. And I'd go to these people in this gas station and my coworkers, I'm like, you know what, man, I'm going to become a developer. Like, I'm going to learn how to code. And they would tell me, man, That's for smart people, dude. That's not for people like us. Like, you can't do this. You don't have a degree. Like, you've never been to college. Like, this isn't for people like us. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. This isn't for people like us, but it is for me. And I will do anything within the universe to make this happen. And to this day, when I go visit that gas station, I still see my old coworkers, and I'm like, man, there's nothing wrong with these jobs if that's what you want to keep. All I'm saying is the grass is greener, and we use fertilizer over here, and you can partake in this if you want to. Like, if you want to, we've got open spots that we need to fill. Like, we've got the openings. We just need you to come along for the ride and do what's necessary to get these jobs. And I will say it's becoming more and more competitive to become a developer. There's more and more people, like I said, every single day someone's learning something. So you need to learn enough to make sure you're standing out. And you need to make sure you're doing enough to make sure no one has a reason to pass over you and go into somebody else.
Well said. Well said. Are there any other questions in chat?
Oh yeah, we got a bunch of messages right now.
All right, let's get them. Let's get them.
Mario Martinez, I too have big dreams, and I'm in the conversation. Sign me up, Danny. Thank you. I appreciate you. I'm glad that you're getting motivated, and I hope you keep doing exactly what you need to be doing. Anurag says thank you for answering. John says, what 5 projects do you think we need to put on a portfolio when looking for a junior full stack position? What do you think about that, Rod?
I don't know about 5 set projects. I think like your projects should be relevant to what you're interested in, because part of your projects is to show your personality. But also with the projects, you want to make sure that they show value, because like we talked about before, every company wants to see like what value you're going to bring for me. So if you build a project and maybe it relates to some sort of feature they want to build soon, they'll be like, wow, like so you build something similar, like they can envision you working. And that's huge. So not, like I would want to feature like 2, maybe 3 projects on a resume and just make them relevant and show that they demonstrate value.
So I definitely agree with what Rod said to a big degree. I will say it's great to have like a bunch of small projects, but you're showcasing like your abilities, but you need to have one big project that you can do, that you can talk about in an interview. And here's a perfect example. You can give a very boring, like if an interviewer to say, like, do you know SQL? A very boring answer is, yes, I know SQL. Or you can say, yes, I know SQL because I created this application with city database names that use SQL as the database, and I use Java on the back end, and I used Angular on the front end to display that information. I've just given 3 strong talking points that I say, I know Java, I know SQL, I know Angular. I'm now controlling and steering this interview where I want it to be, instead of the interviewer going based off their questions. Because now they're going to be like, well, what did this application do? Because you just said you made an application on it. So what did it do? Oh, well, it separated rural city names and urban city names. And by using Java on the back end, I used the API to pull all these city names in. And you would enter, this information here, and it would display it like this. And, I would love to show it to you right now. Let me pull out my laptop from my briefcase. And boom, now you've got a way to actually utilize this and test this out. I'm now controlling the narrative. I'm a big believer in controlling the interview, and I'm a big believer in controlling the questions. And one thing that I always say in interviews is, asking questions is kind of boring and you're only going to get a certain amount of information. But having a conversation, you will discover a lot about me. And I've had more interviewers try that method with me after me saying that. And now they're getting a ton of information about me. They're learning about who I am as a human being. But I'm keeping them where I want them. Because if I keep slapping you in the face, eventually I'm going to knock you out in love with me. But now, if you go down like, well, do you know MongoDB? Oh, I don't know MongoDB, unfortunately, but I know SQL. Oh, well, do you know C#? Well, no, I know Java. Oh, well, do you know React? Well, no, I know Angular. Well, damn, how many no's am I going to give this person and still make them like me? Yeah. But if I can control what they're feeding, what they're eating, now they're going to come to me for exactly what they want.
And so, the interviewer feel like you're interviewing them, basically.
Pretty much. And that, to be honest, like I know it's a hard concept to understand. Like when you have never had a job in tech, it's a tough like ask. I totally get that. And it could definitely be daunting because you're like, you know what, like, oh man, like I don't want to lose this opportunity. Like they're half into me. Like, do I really want to start like trying to say like, well, what are you bringing to the table now? Like, what is your policy on inner growth? Like, what like asking? I'm a big believer you should ask questions about the company because it shows them that you're interested in them as well.
Yeah.
But I can totally understand that it's scary to do that. And I'll tell you this. It's a funny story. So I was heading to an event. I was interviewing with the company I'm with now, and I kind of didn't do as good as I wanted in the final interview. And so I literally messaged the hiring recruiter. I was like, look, good, bad, ugly, just be upfront with me and let me know like what's happening. 2 hours later, she calls me and she's like, hey, like we're gonna make you an offer.
Wow.
And I swear to God, I was calm, cool, collected in my voice, but my body was dancing in ways that I didn't know I could dance. Like I was so happy, like, oh man, I couldn't believe it. And I remember they gave me a number and it was almost instinctual because in gas stations, you're dealing with vendors all the time. You're negotiating price points, things like that. And so they gave me a number and almost instinctually, like I countered that offer. And as the words were leaving my mouth, I said, what the are you doing right now? You just got your first job in tech. They gave you a great offer, and your first dumb move is to counter it.
You're
And
great.
I remember like her voice kind of dropped, like, oh. And I was like, this is not make a break. It's not make a break. Like I wanted to save it, but I knew I was in too far to pull that back. She's like, well, let me go back to them and see. And I was like, man, I know I did pretty damn good in these interviews, minus one question in that last interview where I didn't really hold what I wanted. I wonder if they're just going to be like, we're moving on to somebody else. Not only did they did reject my counter, they totally rejected it, but they beat it. They went higher than what I asked for to make sure I was happy and content with the role that I was accepting, because I told them I don't make short-term plays, I make long-term moves. And I want a company I can grow with. And by doing that, they were so excited. They said, we want him for the long haul. So they gave me a bigger number than what I asked for. And I know it's not like super manly, but I totally cried. Like I was like, oh God, can't believe this happened. But it definitely happened. And to go back to the one thing I was going to say before I got sidetracked, one project that I tell people to make all the time is make an e-commerce website. And the example that I normally give is overstock.com. I don't shop on overstock.com. I found the website by chance one day and I was like, okay, it's multiple products across multiple categories and multiple pages. If you can create a website like that, and it's a big project, it's not a small project, it's going to take you a little while. But if you can do that and you have a cart function to where I can select an item and put it in a cart and I go to that cart and I can see it, you don't have to have like the actual checkout process working. No one is going to put their credit card information in. And if they are, just have that capture ready, I guess, and go nuts if they do. But no one is going to go that far. But if you have that option to where they can search across multiple pages, like a couch, a chair, whatever, and actually like functionally go through it, that is a project you could talk about in an interview, because you're going to use multiple like pieces of languages to utilize that and do that. But now you have something to talk about. You're showcasing your experience in that language. It's a big, big stepping stone, and it will separate you from everybody else.
I agree.
All right. We got a lot of messages now. I wasn't looking. Leela's like, I'll do my best. Beth Arnold says, women in tech. I think that was on the women in tech point. Thank you, ladies. I hope you kill it. I recently got my first developer job as a short-term contract, but it was ended in about a month. They said the work I did was good, but I was not fast enough for the pace of the project. How would you handle this, and would you still put in your resume? Absolutely, I put in my resume. Why to stop? And here's the thing, like you have, even though you lost the job, you now have a very good review saying, hey, the work I did was great. They said it. It's great. You don't have to add in the part where it was fast. Just say the contract ended. Like, simple as that. Like, it was a month-long contract. I did my month, and that's it. So now you can go back to hiring managers saying, hey, or recruiters even saying, hey, I'm a contract hire that did great and, fulfilled my obligations, and I'm looking for the next one. You don't need to add in the last part where it was like, oh, they thought I was slow. Like, don't do that. But make sure you're still working on your craft. And now that you have a talking point, like, hey, you're slow. Now you know I need to work on some speed a little bit. Just take that mental note. That's a very valuable and constructive criticism. And now you can work on that to make sure you're better for the roles that you're going to be getting in the future.
Yeah, exactly. Control your narrative, and there's some negative there, but you get to determine how positive or negative your narrative is. So.
Pretty much. We've got damn Manny. Elizabeth says, "Damn, Danny, mad respect. Thank you." Melanie says, "This is so motivating. I definitely needed this. Thank you." Jacob says, "What is the best way to create a value proposition for yourself?" It's
an open question.
Yeah, if you can ask that question with a little bit more detail, I can go off of something. But it's definitely got some. I need more details to create an answer for that. This resonates as a Latina in the industry, a career changer. I got to keep grinding. Absolutely. And I'm trying to write a cover letter as listen, not a good idea. Probably not, because you're probably going to start writing a cover letter like that's way too hype. We're feeding you.
Be like, I'm the shit. You should hire me.
Pretty much. Angie Rodriguez. There's a lot of women in here. That's phenomenal. Yeah, same here, Elizabeth.
Helpers that are women in our community, honestly.
I love that. That's to be honest, that's an area that like I'm really focused on, and I truly believe like I know phenomenal developers that are women, and they have very great analytical skills. They have so much passion. They put so much into the work they do because they're phenomenal at it. And I feel like there's definitely bias in the industry. And I think the more women that we can sneak in, however we do it, and they crush it, it's going to open the door for so many others. Because I can tell you right now, one phenomenal woman developer that I think everyone should follow, Angie Jones. She's on Twitter. She's phenomenal. I love Angie. She's like my sister. I will support her to the end of time because she is incredible at what she does. And she's so incredible. She's the first Black female Java champion ever. She has the highest accolade that there is in Java. And I mean, she's beat out tons of people. That's basically like the Nobel Peace Prize of Java, right? So like to get that, like it's showing how many people she just destroyed with her amazing, incredible abilities and development. She's got tons of free courses on Java, and like she's even created an entire like beginning to end Applet Tools is her company, where you can literally come in not knowing Java and walk out knowing it. Definitely follow Angie Jones on Twitter and tell her Danny sent you, and she'll laugh about it. She's phenomenal. What is this from Anurag? After following all of Danny's tips, interviewer to interviewee, I will make you an offer you can't refuse. I mean, that's pretty much it. Like, as weird as it is, like you need to become so valuable that they're like, you need to be so damn good that they can't pass up on you. Simple as that. That's how you're going to get your job in tech. You want a job in tech? Be so damn good that before that interview, they're like, I don't really need this person. And after that interview, like, I wish I could go with this other person, but I can't turn this down. You need to be so damn good that if you have a difficult name to pronounce, after that interview, they're studying how to pronounce the name properly. Like, if you're that damn good, you will get a job. Simple as that. I know I'm shaking my table a lot today. I don't know why. I feel like I moved it off the thing. But
you're hype. I feel you.
Yeah. I got these heavy hands, and it's like shaking this whole damn table. I'm a data scientist, and to do a big project isn't really clear cut. Any advice for us data scientists? I'll be honest, I don't have a ton of experience in data science. I have helped many data scientists land jobs, and it's only because I know the basics of what we're looking for: R, Python, Pandas, things like that. And I mean, Python's going to be your main wheelhouse for that. Yeah. I will say that there's no way for you to really showcase like your coding abilities besides pushing out code like in a GitHub where they can actually like go over it. But there's nothing that you're going to be able to style unless you're building like some graphs or something with R. But other than that, like I would just have my code on GitHub and produce code snippets and things like that to showcase like this is something that's great for you. And to be honest, I would be producing code snippets and putting it on LinkedIn so that way they can see the level of my code. And that has helped me get, like, posting code snippets has been the one thing that has got me into contact with developers that are higher than me, and it literally starts a conversation because they'll be like, oh, they'll critique you and accept that criticism as like valuable criticism because you're learning things in a way that you won't have exposure to until you work in the field. And it's going to help you become better because it's almost like a developer can't help themselves when they see something done wrong. They're like, hey, it would be better if you do X, Y, Z. Like, it's almost like compulsive. Like, oh, I'm scrolling through Twitter and I see like a JavaScript tip thing, and I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to comment, but I got to let this guy know, like, hey, this is outdated, or like there's a better way to do this. Same thing. If you're posting some code snippets, a developer is going to look.
So on the data science side, also I'll say, with startups, I would kind of approach them because usually you're looking at their data too much. Like, startups kind of build their digital products, they have their designer, the developers, but their data is kind of just sitting there. So if you come in and say, hey, like, I'm just looking for some experience, like, would you mind if, I made some visualizations or kind of gave you some analytics or something like that? So that's one thing where you can find startups on Angel List. And then two, in terms of, doing projects like a developer does, I know like developers, they kind of code it from scratch so they can kind of start from nothing, but data scientists, they need data. So if the data doesn't already exist, go out and get it. Like, we have the whole internet, so get into scraping and, create your own data sets, show how you can clean that up. And then maybe you build a model that can process text and shoot out something else. So you can build that software using data and contribute to kind of the same projects with developers and designers.
100%. We have a question. Do I need to learn data structures and algorithms if I'm looking for a front-end gig?
It's for you.
You want to take that? Okay, I was going to say, it's sad, but technology is the only field where the interview is harder than the job, unfortunately. I hate saying that, but it really is. And it comes because this is kind of like a trade field where you need to showcase your abilities to actually do something. And it really leaves like a sucky interview process for a lot of companies. Because the other thing is, a lot of these companies, they're like a mom and pop insurance company, but they think they're the next Google. And they have these ridiculous interview processes. And it's flawed. It's a really flawed process, unfortunately. And I've had to go through more coding interviews than I can ever recommend. And I've done whiteboard coding and assessments and take-home tests. And I'll give you an example. I have a guy. He was like 6 years experience, phenomenal developer. He even built an app that has like 30 or 40,000 downloads in the App Store, right? Killing it. He took a hacker rank assessment and the company ghosted him because he failed a hacker rank. And I'm like, do we not have enough tangible evidence here to show you that this guy knows how to code? Like, 6 years experience. He didn't lose his job at any place he went to. And he's got an app that actually works. But it's the nature of the beast of what we're in. So yes, you do need to learn data structures and algorithms. You probably won't use it most of the time. You're probably going to have to fix a button or create a hover effect on a link, but you're still going to need to know those algorithms. And to start, I would get on Code Wars or Leak Code or HackerRank, whatever you like the best, and just start learning them, just start working at them. Because that's the one thing also that I've kind of noticed with like data structures and algorithms. The more you do it, the more you get used to that process and that thought process, and you can understand them a lot quicker and get them faster. So in the beginning, it may be very daunting because I can't tell you how many people I've helped start doing algorithms, and the most basic thing, they're just like brain farts. But through repetition and constantly working at it, you'll get much better at what you're doing.
Said.
We've got Elizabeth Soto. That's right, Angie. Any tips for a fresh data scientist? I'll let you take care of this.
So kind of like what I was saying before in terms of fresh data scientists, like in getting projects. So you want to do that, approaching startups, and then don't only go for data scientist positions. So, businesses kind of will throw data scientists even when they need a data analyst, and they kind of overhype their expectations because they want someone that's going to build them, like an actual robot. But in terms of what they actually need. It's going to be a data scientist, a data analyst kind of role. And so just go for data analyst roles. Before I became a data scientist mentor, like I did data analyst role. And then I was like, hey, like I got all this data and like I cleaned it up and, it looks nice now. Like, why not build a model? And like, I just kept teaching myself Python, kept applying it on the job. And from there, I was able to build like models that saved them hundreds of thousands of dollars. So go for data analyst, data engineering positions also. And then, you can work your way up. The title is one thing, but if you're getting, paid well and doing what you like, then it doesn't matter.
Pretty much. So, what if you hype yourself up so much and you get the job and the first day you bomb it? So, especially if it's your first job in tech, no hiring managers are going to expect you to come out of the gate swinging. Like, they all know there's a learning curve. And I'll even tell you this, at my company, they have like an expectation of any developer they hire needs like a 2 to 3 month period to actually get well deep into the code base and learn what's going on. No one's expecting you in the beginning to actually like be phenomenal at it. And I'll tell you this, I almost quit my job before I ever got my first paycheck. And my biggest regret going into tech was not learning Git properly before getting a job. And I was so overwhelmed and so confused, and I was deleting working branches, and people were working on this, and I deleted it because I didn't know what I was doing. And I promise you, I was having like a mental breakdown when I had to go to my team, but man, I just deleted all the work that we've all done because we were all in the same branch because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And I promise you, like, nothing was worse than that. What I've realized in tech is if you are open about your mistake instead of trying to cover it up and hide it, they are more receptive to working with you in that scenario. But if you try to cover up your faults, that is where they're penalizing you for it. That is where they're like, hey, you know what? You got to go. Like, you're causing problems, but then on top of that, you're not letting us know, and there's no way for us to catch these situations. If you're open about it, you'll be fine. But the other thing is, don't say you're Albert Einstein when you're not. Like, hype yourself up to a realistic standpoint. Like, what? And you're more than welcome to steal this from me. I give you permission to steal this. One thing that I always say in pretty much every single interview that I'm in is I'm not afraid to tell someone I don't know something. And tech is not really, there's no real gray area. It's black and white. And when you try, people have this innate ability. So when someone's like, well, do you know data structures? And you're like, yeah, I know it. Because you don't really know, but you're saying, yeah, thinking like, oh, they're just going to glaze over this. Well, now they're digging into this, and now it's very clear that you don't know it. So they've exposed you as a fake, as a fraud, or whatever. Instead, you need to go into that situation where if someone asks you a question you don't know, just be upfront saying, I don't know the answer to that. But if you give me enough time, I will research it, and I will come back with the correct answer. I've had more people open up to me through that than anything else. And the other thing that I always say is, you may find someone that is, far more intelligent than me. 100% I believe it. You may find someone more attractive than me. But, I mean, you're really going to have to look hard because, come on, let's be real. But you will never find someone that is more passionate and more thrilled about what I'm doing. They just don't exist. I will outwork anyone in this scenario, but I'm loving what I'm doing. And if you give me the scenario where if you're asking me a question and I don't know the answer, I'll research it, I'll find it out, and I'll bring you the correct information. I just don't have it on me right now. Companies love that because not only you're saying, okay, I don't know it, but you're saying, I'm willing to go the extra mile to find out. That is the kind of person that they're looking for because anybody could code. Anybody can write code. You're not there for that. They're not paying you 6 figures for that. They're not giving you all this salary for that, right? Anybody could be a code monk. Anybody could do that. You're there because you're going to solve problems. They need problem solvers. They need someone to say, okay, this is not working. We don't know why. I need you to figure it out. Because if they just need somebody to fix a button, they can find out the problem and basically break it down to someone and pay them like, a low salary. Like they don't need to pay you well to do something very simple like that. But you do need to identify a problem and fix it.
Yeah, the only point I want to reinforce also is the passion. Because so like Apprentice, we've matched up like businesses with interns, and I always ask every business like, why'd you choose that person? Every single time they say it's because they were passionate and they had this energy. And if you have that interview, like the interview is going to feel it and be like, yo, we need this person in our company.
Yeah, 100%. And here's another thing, and I hate like using the word like passion, because people think, well, if I'm not like at this level the whole time and willing to do this, like they're not going to consider me. But it's almost true. Like you do need, especially when you don't have experience, you need to bring something else to the table. So if I can't bring you 10 years of experience, I'm going to bring you the passion of 10 years. Like if that's all I can bring, then I'm going to bring it. I'm going to bring something to set myself apart from others. But if you go in with the bare minimum, it's hard to get somebody to agree to that. Getting that first call. How to stay positive with a lot of rejections, no responses. I will say, for every job you're applying to, just know you're not the only one. And it's just being realistic about it. Let's say there's 200 people applying to that job. Do you think, in realistic terms, that you're the best out of the 200? If the answer is no, we need to fix that. If the answer is yes, then you just need to keep marketing yourself in a better way. I will also say this. There was a job that I wanted. I wanted it bad. In that interview process, I did everything possible to get that job. I thought I did it all right. They turned me down. My stomach turned. I wanted to throw up. I was so sick. Like I wanted, out of everything I wanted that job. Like I wanted that company and everything. It was the best thing that never happened, because after that is when I found my dream company and I found my dream job. That is why I always tell people, I hope you get what you need and not what you want, because sometimes our wants and our needs don't coexist together. Just know that if a no is happening right now, it may be happening for a reason. You may not be a good fit, or maybe they're not a good fit for you, or a lot of times we set our bar so low that we're just trying to get scraps. Why do you want to work at Subway when you could work at a steakhouse, right? Same concept here. Don't just put your bar so low that you're just willing to take the first job that gives you a computer. Keep putting yourself in the right positions, and you're going to get a bunch of no's. It's just life. Like there's always going to be someone that can do something in a different way that maybe be appealing to that employer. Remember, when you get a job, it's going to be for the long haul. So just know that whether it takes 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, it's going to be a while. That's fine. And here's the other thing. To get a degree, it's going to take you 4 years to get a bachelor's, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people, they've been learning code for a year and like, oh, this is taking forever. Even if it takes you 3 more years, it's the same length of period as it is to get a degree just to qualify for a job that needs a degree, right? So is it really taking you that long? Like if you went the degree route, you would spend 4 years and then you would start applying to jobs and then you would start learning more stuff to be marketable. So is it really that long if it takes you 6 months? Is it really that long if it takes you 4 months? Listen to me when I tell you this. You are valuable. Stop discounting yourself. Don't say you're so willing to be thrown away that within 2 months any random person can pick you up and you'll be happy. Put some value on what you're bringing to this table and put some value on your life. Stop looking for the first opportunity to say yes. Look for what's right for you.
Yeah, and I really like what you mentioned in terms of like the time span. Like I went to college for 5.5 years and I'm still $60,000 in student debt. So what is a year for to go to boot camp and get a job at the end, even if it's like a 6-month job search in there? It's nothing.
100%.
It's nothing. So just be patient, and also in terms of opportunities. Like I was the only person I didn't have a job when we were graduating, but eventually I got the job I liked right at home, so I could live with my parents in Miami, which I did not think was possible. I thought I was gonna have to move to San Fran or something. So It's like it's all about the consistency you mentioned before. Consistency over time equals results.
You're in Miami. There's a great GDG over there, GDG in Miami, and they do some great stuff. So if you're in that neck of the woods, you should totally check them out. Phenomenal human beings, and I'm sure you could definitely do some great stuff with them. We got a bunch of questions. For data scientists, they actually ask for master's, PhDs. Are bachelors not eligible anywhere?
So in terms of bachelors, like unless if it's in statistics or math, physics, like those kind of topics, I mean, majors that, they think you're a brainiac right away, then doesn't really count. So like even me, like my bachelor's was in information systems. And even though I focused on business analytics, which was on that route, I got passed over for like statistics majors all the time. So in terms of the degree, I wouldn't look at it too much. And like I mentioned before, go for those data analyst jobs. They're going to kind of lower the requirements a little bit, but you'll be able to leverage your data science knowledge in there. And eventually maybe they see, okay, if we make them a data scientist with a data scientist salary, then they're going to provide way more value for our company.
You're completely right. There's nothing I would say different here. Got it. Thanks for the advice. I'm upfront and don't self-pity in an interview, but I'm always afraid to even get the job because of the expectations I thought they would have after hyping myself up in the interview. I think you're completely fine. Don't go crazy and say like, you cure cancer or something like that. But, if it comes to code, you know exactly what you're doing and you should be confident about that. Layla has to go. Thank you for being with us. I appreciate that. Truly, we should know what we don't know. Okay. And should accept it happily. Thank you for this one. All right. Very true about wants versus needs. Thank you. How did you study? How did you manage your time studying and not waste time on the computer, but not really learning? Basically, what are your effective learning strategies, Danny? Okay. So when I was learning how to code, I was working 80 plus hours a week in that gas station, 7 days a week. So for me, I had to create the hours because they didn't exist. Now, I don't say this because it's cool. I literally just didn't have a choice. I don't care what time of the day it is, but you need to prioritize you because you are valuable. Put yourself first for a change and dedicate yourself some time in your day to do something necessary for yourself. So at that time when I was learning, I was studying at night after work, and I realized I wasn't really retaining the knowledge that I was working so hard to learn. I was tired. I worked 12, 14, 15 hours. Like my brain was just off. It just wasn't happening. So I realized, let me try to wake up early. So I would start waking up at 2:30 in the morning and I would study. And I realized when my brain was fresh, it was like a sponge. I was not having to work as hard to learn these things. It was sticking with me and it was being retained easily. So I can cover a lot more course stuff in a shorter period of time. So for me, even now, I still wake up early. If you follow me, I wake up at 4. And so from 4 a.m. to 7 a.m., when my family wakes up, that is me time. That is time where I do something dedicated to myself, nothing work related. This is me time. So whether I want to learn something new in a language, I want to learn something new in life, I want to read a book, I want to, whatever it is, if it's working towards these goals, whatever it is to make me better, that is what I'm doing during that time. So, and here's the other thing. Your mind is a very complex object, and I believe in mental triggers. When I'm at this desk that I'm sitting at right now, the only thing that happens here is work. If I start slacking off, I remove myself from this desk. And by doing that and keeping that strict, what happens is when I sit here, my brain is like, oh, it's work time. That is the only thing on my mind is work time. This dedicated area. Once I walk in this room, like, oh, YouTube doesn't exist, Twitter doesn't, none of that exists. This is work time. But now, once I start slacking off, I go to the other room where I got my other desk, and I can watch some TV, videos, whatever. Or I go watch my TV over here that's next to this thing. I'm watching, videos, movies, whatever. But the other thing is, I have my goals written on a physical piece of paper on this wall. So when I go and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to go binge watch Netflix, right? And I sit down, my goals are facing me. And then I'm saying, have I really done enough to like watch these 10 episodes on Netflix? And if the answer is no, I'll watch 2 episodes, still have my downtime, right? But now I'll spend these additional 8 hours making a better version of myself. I'll spend these 8 hours getting me a couple of steps closer to where I want to be. So I still have my downtime. I still enjoy my life. I still have fun time for me. But then I make sure I'm prioritizing stuff for me. Because here's something that's very clear cut. You are going to land somewhere in 2025. This, I guarantee this, unless something catastrophic happens and you die, unfortunately, you're going to reach somewhere in 2025, right? You might as well reach there doing exactly what the hell you want to do.
Exactly.
Simple as that. I know you're going to be in 2025. Why don't you get there doing what you want as opposed to just leaving up to chance, taking each day at a time, and then in 2025, you're like, oh man, I'm not where I want to be. So if we know you're going to land somewhere in 2025, you might as well land there, whether it's working in tech, whether it's being a data scientist, or whether it's being a ballerina, if that's what you really want to do. Whatever you want, you got 5 years. In August of 2025, I want you to remember this conversation. You say, man, Danny was right. I ended up somewhere. Now, is that somewhere where I want to be? Am I still working at the gas station, or am I working at a tech company? Am I making damn near minimum wage, or am I working for a company that did $1 billion in revenue and I'm making 6 figures because I believe in myself and I prioritize myself and I put myself first? And if you put yourself first, something's going to happen. And I'm not saying you're going to make $1 million. I'm not saying you're going to make 6 figures, but I'm saying you can make whatever it is that you want to put yourself into, but you got to put yourself in the situations to make sure it works.
That was extremely well said. I don't know if I could follow that up. but yeah, like work hard, but remember that you also have to take care of yourself. And if you burn yourself out, the quality of your work is not going to be the same. So you could take breaks. That's what you need to do. Take care of your mind, 100%. Meditate, work out, watch Netflix if that's what you need to do. But then, still know the goals you got to hit and stay focused on them.
I love that so much. And actually, prime example today. So today, I even tweeted this. I slept until 7 a.m. I know sleeping is kind of weird at 7 a.m. Yeah, but I was tired, so I didn't kill myself and I just slept.
Yeah.
I would rather you pull back and prevent burnout than to have to recover, because that recovery is not going to be a day or 2 days. That recovery can take weeks sometimes. I would rather you pull back a couple of days. Like, man, I've been going hard and I'm tired. Pull back, take some break. Like this last weekend, I went out of town to Georgia with my family. My kids starting school on Monday, so I was like, let's have one little family thing together for us before we start that. Before that, before everything got crazy, I went to Tampa and spent some time with my family because I felt like my mind was getting foggy. And I don't live to code. I code to live. Like, this isn't my life, but it's the tool to get me what I want out of here, right? So I'm not going to kill myself to make myself better in coding, because the code's always going to be there. And I know it's weird when like you're in a position where you're like, oh, I'm trying to get a job. I guarantee you, if you put that code down today, when you wake up tomorrow, it's still going to be there. It is not going to change. It's going to be exactly where you left it. So I would rather you take that break, sleep, rest, get some recovery in there, and then return back to it. Because if you keep pushing yourself, you're not even going to want what you're striving for anymore. Like, it's not even going to be attractive to you. So I would rather you not burn yourself out. I would rather you rest, and then you'll have the strength to go reach that new level that you want to reach.
Exactly. So yeah, I've been on for 2 hours, so we're going to get it now. But yeah, no, I want to make sure we got to as many questions as possible. So thank you for sticking around, Danny. Your energy is infectious. I know a lot of people are about to go change their lives tomorrow morning. Hit your LinkedIn live series. So it's on LinkedIn or is it YouTube?
It's on my YouTube channel. Anywhere on social media besides LinkedIn, my name is D Thompson Dev. Whether it's Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. But for LinkedIn, it's Danny Thompson. You'll see the $1 million face. So of course, you'll know where you need to be. And you can go ahead and send me a request and I'll add you. And, anytime I have a meetup, all my meetups are online. You are more than welcome to come to one of them with GDG Memphis. Like I always say, you don't need to be from Memphis. we'll make you a Memphian for the day so you can join us. But regardless of wherever you are, I have no problem trying to help people in whatever way that I can, if it's feasible for me. But the other thing is, if you just need general tips and advice, my Twitter is a gold mine for it. Follow me on Twitter, and you'll definitely find whatever you're trying to look for.
Yeah, this guy's on there all day posting some gold nuggets. So you guys can go through that. And also, a lot of people that will comment on this stuff are insightful too.
That is why I love the community that we've been building, because I can't answer all of them anymore. Like, it's impossible. There's just so many messages. But we have so many passionate people that are following me that love to jump in and be like, if you're asking a question like, oh, well, this is a great avenue to take this. And that's why I also started the Discord community where we have 1,600 developers that talk. And if you want to join that, you can find it through my Twitter. But literally, like, we've got developers on there, and they're chiming in, answering coding questions to help people get to that next level. I created these avenues because I know we need to foster this supportive group, and that's exactly what we're doing. And it will definitely help you reach that next level if that's what you're looking for.
It's all that community helping each other out. So that's it. So again, thank you, Danny, so much. Everyone, I posted his Twitter and his LinkedIn right below. For anybody that is a bootcamp grad that hasn't joined our community, we also have a Discord community that you can join at prentice.co/community. But otherwise, Danny, thank you for getting through all the questions, sharing that knowledge, sharing that energy. And who knows, maybe do this again in the future.
Absolutely. I'm always open to a good conversation. Thank you for having me, Rod. I know you got some great things going, and I can't wait to see what new levels you reach.
Me too, man. 2025.
2025. Let's see.
Exactly. Good night, everyone.
All right. Good night.